What were your thoughts on the show's conclusion? Even though it was painful, we did love and loathe each other and wanted to slap one other about because of our regular arguments and arguing. Once a Hollywood star, Sib Shepherd had a $1 million face and golden hair that gleamed like the sun in the South. She rocked the film world with her first part. She appeared on the Golden Globe stage more than once in the ensuing years. She was described as a star born to shine. Being a star born to shine. Later, though, she would be consumed by that very attention. Cybill Shepherd was pulled from the pinnacle of popularity to the brink of rejection by passionate but scandalous affairs, a startling connection with a married director, and encounters with the television industry's covert power structure. And as the cheers subsided, she had to confront something for which no screenplay could ever prepare her: malignant skin cancer, unbearable anguish, and the loneliness of a once famous person who can no longer be forgiven. What caused a star to rise to the top and then fall and unfall? Why did Sybil decide to stop hiding anything after sharing her honest, emotional, and unreserved journey in her biography, Civil Disobedience? You're going to find out why she decided to share everything now. Born on February 18, 1950, Cybill Lynn Shepherd grew up in the calm but traditional city of Memphis, Tennessee. She came from a middle-class background. Her mother, Patty, was a stay-at-home mom, while her father, William Shepherd, owned a small business. She had a younger brother named William and an older sister named Terry, making her the middle child in a family of three. Her father's name, Bill, and her grandfather's name, Cy, were combined to form her name, Cybill. It's a peculiar but memorable name. Hollywood would eventually remember that name forever. From an early age, Cybill was unique. She was tough to ignore because of her expressive eyes, light skin, and blonde hair. However, her beauty wasn't what people recalled most. It was her character. She was different from the normal Southern girls of her era. While she was a student at East High School, she did not wait to be sought after. She pursued people she liked. She even once skipped class to try out for a modeling job, which, if discovered, could have resulted in her suspension. She didn't like Cybill, though. Life was supposed to be unique. She competed in the Miss Teenage Memphis pageant in 1966 when she was 16 years old. She went on to represent the city at Miss Teenage America after winning the title. Despite not making the final cut, she received the modest but significant honor of Miss Congeniality. It demonstrated that there was something genuinely endearing about her that went beyond her appearance. Although it occasionally left her open to abuse, that trait will eventually help her succeed. At a young age, Cybill started modeling in addition to her education. She was named Model of the Year at the age of 18. She went from being a Memphis high school student to being featured on the cover of Glamour magazine and as the face of L'Oreal. Her entire life was altered by just one picture. While standing in a grocery store checkout line one day, director Peter Bogdanovich, who was then searching for a female lead for a movie, noticed Cybill's face on a magazine cover. Who is this girl? He immediately called her agency. A few weeks later, Cybill received an invitation to try out for the Last Picture Show. She was cast in the part, which was both her first on-screen appearance and the first time her personal life was made public. There were no paving stones when Cybill left Memphis. Through initiative, an unapologetic demeanor, and an unwillingness to lead a substandard life, she acquired everything on her own. She would go on to become one of Hollywood's most feared and admired ladies because of that very quality. Cybill Shepherd made a memorable debut in the film industry. She was chosen by director Peter Bogdanovich to play J.C. Farrow in The Last Picture Show, a famous black-and-white movie that was remarkably daring for its day in 1971. Sensitive subjects, sexuality, loneliness, and the silent cracks of young people in West Texas were all explored in the film. In a now famous nude scene, Cybill, who played a lovely but cold and cunning young woman, undressed in a living room behind clear glass, exposing her body and her emotions. She was just 21. Despite having no professional training or acting experience, Cybill was able to access a raw and vital aspect of filmmaking: pure presence. She was nominated for her first Golden Globe right away in the category of New Star of the Year, an incredible accomplishment for a model in her debut movie role. However, Cybill wasn't the only one who appeared. So did the movie. The Last Picture Show won 2 Oscars and was nominated for 8, including Best Picture. It is still regarded as one of the key pieces of American film from the 1970s. It is frequently cited as one of the best American movies ever made. For Cybill Shepherd, playing J.C. Farrow was more than just a first appearance. It served as a huge springboard for her career in movies. Hollywood no longer viewed her as a model-turned-actress after that performance. They began referring to her as a phenomenon. More significantly, she brought recognition to the entire sector. Not all forms of beauty are under our control. She went on to play important parts in The Heartbreak Kid, 1972, and Taxi Driver, 1976, after The Last Picture Show, SOTY, Last Picture Show. Despite having little on-screen time, her character Betsy, who had a vulnerable yet steely look, became the focus of both Travis Bickle's and the audience's Robert Darrow infatuation in Taxi Driver. Cybill, however, didn't end with the movie. Since she was a teenager, music had always been a silent part of her. She followed her second dream of being a singer after she had made a name for herself in Hollywood. Her first studio album, Cybill Does It to Cole Porter, was published in 1974. It featured a number of timeless jazz standards performed with tenderness, passion, and a decidedly feminine touch. Cybill opted for the more difficult route of traditional jazz, where technique could not conceal a lack of emotion rather than pursuing popular pop. She didn't turn into a diva in music. For those who listened with their hearts, she sang. She continued to release Mad About the Boy in 1990 throughout the years that followed. 1992's Cybill Gets Better. Cybill Shepherd sings Cole Porter in the 2006 song At Long Last Love. Outside of the studio, Cybill played at lounges, jazz clubs, and small cultural gatherings as a genuine musician, not to sell tickets. Although her voice lacked technical explosiveness, it possessed an unadulterated charm and emotional honesty that is uncommon in big-name performers. So, she followed music into television as well. She deftly incorporated her passion of music into her role in the 1995-1998 sitcom Cybill. Viewers were repeatedly taken aback when Cybill Sheridan would switch between sarcasm and song, singing passionately in the middle of ordinary moments, seemingly to convey the message that music remained her haven despite the noise. However, Cybill decided to put all of that on hold in order to become a mother, even though her acting and singing careers were flourishing. Clementine Ford, her first daughter, was born in the late 1970s. Cybill once acknowledged in an interview that, "I could have more roles, but I would never have that moment with my daughter again." She returned to the small screen in 1977, with guest appearances in programs like Fantasy Island after taking some time off to raise her family. Cybill had altered by then. The woman whom spectators eagerly anticipated seeing every week was no longer the exciting newcomer, but rather a figure that was both recognizable and elusive. Cybill Shepherd's career took a dramatic turn in 1985 when she accepted a job that was completely different from anything she had ever played. A bankrupt former model named Maddie Hayes is compelled to manage an eccentric detective firm with Bruce Willis's erratic colleague, David Addison. The program was ABC's romantic, comedic detective series Moonlighting. Moonlighting gained popularity because to its incisive scripts, fast-paced dialogue evocative of stage plays, and a rhythm that combined romantic tension with humor. However, it was the electric chemistry between Bruce Willis and Cybill Shepherd that kept audiences riveted to the screen. Funny, sensual, and delicate all at once, the tension is as taut as a violin string, their lively energy and organic back and forth, which no acting class could possibly teach, lifted the entire show. They didn't just click on screen. In 1986 and 1987, Cybill won 2 Golden Globes for Best Actress in a Comedy, Musical, or Television Series for her portrayal of Maddie Hayes. The media at the time referred to her as the golden face of primetime television. And TV Guide named Maddie and David one of the decade's most iconic TV couples. By turning a genre series into a subject covered in screenwriting classes, Moonlighting also improved the standing of American television in general. A few episodes defied every convention. In one, characters broke the fourth wall to address the audience directly, while in another, the style was reminiscent of a musical or a noir movie. The driving force behind this innovation was Cybill. She was a bright, independent woman who didn't rely on men, as well as a beauty symbol. Producers have freely acknowledged in numerous interviews that Moonlighting would not have developed its distinct voice without Cybill. In addition to starring, she contributed to the development of the show's distinctive, quick-witted, and multi-layered speech, which would go on to influence innumerable others. Despite Moonlighting's popularity on screen, tensions between Cybill Shepherd and Bruce Willis, the duo who helped establish the program as a brand, began to grow behind the scenes. The friction became more apparent. What started off as little arguments escalated into open altercations. They were both stubborn, strong-willed, and uncompromising. Those two were always at odds, according to the show's co-star Curtis Armstrong's memoir. Bruce was hailed as laid-back and a man's guy, whereas Cybill was frequently called difficult. However, both were equally exhausted by the high-pressure atmosphere of the show. A man is said to be decisive when he yells. Women are referred to as divas when they speak up. In an interview years later, Cybill stated clearly, Tua. Cybill also became pregnant with twins at this period, which caused a delay in delivery. However, the media did not comprehend and instead held her responsible for the show's waning popularity. Bruce Willis's objectives and schedule changed as a result of his rise to fame with the Die Hard franchise. Because they could hardly look at one another off-screen, they filmed together less frequently, and the love intensity on-screen started to wane. The final seasons were the tipping point, when the atmosphere of both writing and working became oppressive. Moonlighting was formally canceled in 1989 after being praised as a creative television phenomenon. From the outside, Cybill appeared to have made the leap from movie to television, achieved unprecedented success, and taken home consecutive Golden Globes. However, she was battling pressure, gender bias, and the inevitable conflicts with a co-star behind the scenes. Someone who was formerly the ideal on-screen companion suddenly found themselves in the same frame with a stranger, I don't regret the tensions on Moonlighting, she once remarked, because without them, the screen wouldn't have felt that real. But the price was high, and after Moonlighting, Cybill Shepherd realized that no success is without its shadow. The darker the silhouette behind the spotlight, the brighter the spotlight. Cybill Shepherd made a comeback to television in 1995 with a show that bore her name, and this time she had complete creative control. Cybill was a sitcom about Cybill Sheridan, a middle-aged Hollywood actress who was once somewhat famous but now juggles mother-in-law role casting calls, raising her children, and battling an industry that was becoming more and more fixated on youth. Shepherd did more than just star in the series. She co-produced it, helped shape the scripts, and guided the tone and message of the entire show, and she won. And the character, as Cybill herself explained, was me, only saying everything I used to hold back. It was a response from a woman once hailed as a beauty icon, then cast aside once her looks faded. As a sort of deep satire, reminiscent of Lucille Ball with a feminist twist, Cybill became an immediate sensation because she voiced topics that women over 40 had never been permitted to discuss on American television. Midlife sexuality, ex-husbands, Hollywood's double standards, being replaced by younger actresses, single motherhood, and unspoken loneliness. Igits called her just that, the Lucille Ball of the 1990s. Beyond commercial success, Cybill had a cultural impact. The show garnered Cybill her third Golden Globe, and her co-star Christine Baranski won for Best Supporting Actress. During its first 3 seasons, Cybill received 12 Emmy nominations and was consistently ranked in CBS Top 20 Most Watched Shows. In an interview, Christine Baranski acknowledged that Cybill was the first show in which the female character was not defined by the men she loved. It set the stage for later shows such as The Good Wife, Grace and Frankie, and Big Little Lies, where older women were no longer marginalized, but instead positioned at the center of the narrative. There was a disturbing truth behind the laughter, though, as Cybill disclosed in a 2018 interview with SiriusXM that the show was abruptly canceled after she politely but firmly declined a sexual offer from Lily Moonves, the then powerful CEO of CBS, during a private dinner. Moonves drank and offered to give her a ride home. Shortly thereafter, he started to meddle in the show's content, made irrational demands, and abruptly ordered its cancellation, despite the contract that was in place. Years later, Moonves was forced to resign after being accused of sexual misconduct by several women. Cybill's story, which had been disregarded at first, was eventually recognized as a telling example of the power structures that had oppressed women in Hollywood for decades. In a public speech, Cybill Shepherd once remarked, "If I had said yes that night, maybe Cybill would have lasted a few more seasons. She never received an apology, but she also never waited for one. But I wasn't here to trade my dignity for a few more sitcom episodes." Previous. Cybill Shepherd's career wasn't limited to her television peaks in 1985 and 1995. After her explosive debut in The Last Picture Show, she had already established a remarkable film career before becoming the queen of prime time in the 1980s. Her films Taxi Driver, 1976, and The Heartbreak Kid, 1972, demonstrated that she was more than just a pretty face. She was an actress who could control her emotions and use coldness on screen with precision. A message that Cybill hadn't just been lucky. She made a quiet return to television in the early 1980s with guest appearances, most notably in Fantasy Island in 1983. This wasn't a spectacular return, but rather a quiet prelude to the success of Moonlighting 2 years later. At about the same time, Cybill started a new journey: music. Even after Cybill Shepherd was canceled, she continued to act, not always in leading roles, but enough to leave an impression, particularly in The Lord, where she played a mother supporting her lesbian daughter. Her first jazz album, released in 1974, wasn't commercially successful, but it revealed another side of her: gentle, persistent, and unfazed by trends. She frequently made guest appearances on shows like Psych, Criminal Minds, and No Ordinary Family during the 2000s. At the same time, she released more jazz albums, such as Cybill Gets Better, 1992, and At Long Last Love, 2006, which were always sophisticated and never catered to mass-market formulas. When considering her career as a whole, it is evident that Cybill wasn't defined by a single point in time. Cybill Shepherd was a young model attempting to make a name for herself in the entertainment industry before she became famous with The Last Picture Show. She was the kind of artist whose every chapter, loud or quiet, grand or humble, was a true fragment of resilience. She shone, she burned, and then she glowed again in her own way. She wrote about her time in New York, studying art and anthropology, and coming to the conclusion that the stigma associated with nudity was a cultural construct in her memoir, Civil Disobedience. This belief had a big impact on one of her most important life decisions: accepting the role of Jase in The Last Picture Show, which included a contentious nude scene. She was dating John Bruno at the time, a rich restaurateur guy who loved Ferraris and was a great chef. But when he found out Cybill was going to do a nude scene, he said bluntly, "If you do that scene, I'll never marry you." They broke up shortly after, and pursuing her passion and facing the consequences became a pattern in Cybill's relationships. Cybill Shepherd's first close relationship in the world of acting was with Jeff Bridges on the set of The Last Picture Show. She described him as a kind, gentle, and likable co-star, and the two soon started hanging out together after work. There was no official commitment, but it was more than just a working relationship. After Jeff had to leave for a week to attend military reserve training, director Peter Bogdanovich, who was married to Polly Platt and then expecting their second child, filled in for him. It was her first genuine sense of connection as she entered the strange world of Hollywood. When Jeff returned, Cybill told him everything, and Bridges didn't get upset. "Jeff is leaving," he said, and Cybill just remarked, "I'm always lonely." She didn't deny her attraction to Bogdanovich, an older, powerful, and sophisticated director, and he didn't hesitate. He simply said, "Be careful, be careful." Despite this calmness, Cybill appeared to realize that things had changed, and that a decision had been made that could not be reversed. She and Bogdanovich lived together, made movies together, and navigated Hollywood as a golden couple and its most scandalous couple for 8 years. Cybill was labeled the homewrecker, a label she would wear for the next 10 years after Bogdanovich left his wife and kids. However, their relationship was complicated. They loved each other, but also listened to each other. Tubtsur. When Bogdanovich had an affair in Singapore while filming St. Jack, Cybill went to see him, knew exactly what was going on, but said nothing. However, she was also unfaithful, as she publicly mentioned in her memoir, a waitress, an employee, and her co-star Charles Grodin, with whom she had an affair that never lasted till dawn. To outsiders, Cybill had it all. A thriving career, a renowned director as a companion, and fame. She once wrote, "I don't think I was cheating on Peter, but there was always a hole inside. How is it possible to be unfaithful to someone you never truly had?" In addition to propelling Cybill to celebrity, her connection with Bogdanovich threw the longest shadow over her life and work for years to come. It was a mixture of passion and anguish, freedom and confinement, the spark of glory and the root of solitude. Cybill had a night with Elvis Presley during the breakdown of her relationship with Bogdanovich, a man she described as sweet like sugar and sweat, nothing like the cheap cologne of other stars, and although it was only once, it made a lasting impression. Elvis had some strangely conservative views on sex, but he eventually warmed up to the idea, as Cybill put it. Nevertheless, she writes, "I enjoyed being in Elvis's bed, but I was unable to fall asleep in it." Cybill recounted dating Don Johnson while filming The Long Hot Summer, saying, "I couldn't bear watching him take pills to sleep and awake. They spent a brief moment on the veranda before rushing to my room. Who are you, like?" However, Johnson slept with a hairdresser on set after a performance she likened to eating candy when you're starving, which was fast, intense, and over in 5 minutes. Cybill had a brief, unresolved affair with Bruce Willis while filming Moonlighting. They had chemistry and even shared an off-screen kiss, but it never progressed. She claimed that Willis would shove a giant camel tongue down my throat during kissing scenes. Cybill broke away from short-lived relationships by marrying David Ford in 1978, whom she had met while still seeing Bogdanovich. The couple had a daughter, Clementine, in 1979, but the marriage ended in 1982 because of Ford's adultery. At one point, Bogdanovich and Ford ran into each other at a dental clinic, and Bogdanovich threw a crystal ashtray at her. In 1987, while pregnant with twins, Cybill married chiropractor Bruce Oppenheim, whom she met while receiving treatment for back pain during the filming of Moonlighting. After the wedding, she went straight back to work and there was no honeymoon. Ford only received $15,000 in the divorce, while Cybill was granted full custody of their child. A few years later, when the twins were just a year old, the marriage ended. Cybill lived with musician Robert Martin, who worked on the Cybill sitcom from 1994 to 1998. She called the relationship an unofficial marriage, and they eventually broke up because of political and philosophical disagreements. As a vocal feminist and progressive, Cybill held beliefs that Martin couldn't agree with. "I think I had a broken heart," Cybill said, "and there was a part of it that wouldn't heal, and that's when I turned to Jesus." Cybill announced her engagement to Serbian-born jeweler-turned-therapist Andrei Nikolovic in 2012. The couple never got married. Cybill Shepherd lived as though love were the only thing worth it, despite criticism, scandals, and the expense. She went through relationships that left scars, but those experiences also made her bold, multifaceted, and not afraid to say what many others only dared to think. Although her life was filled with scandal, Cybill Shepherd was always a fiercely instinctive mother, raising 3 children alone after 2 failed marriages. But can love be just a feeling? Or must it also be weighed by reason and morality? When faced with the choice between instinct and consequence, would you follow your heart or the eyes of the world? For many years, parenthood served as her compass amidst a tumultuous career and internal conflict. Cybill once remarked, "Being a mother is the one thing I couldn't fake," referring to her twins Ariel and Cyrus with her second husband, Bruce Oppenheim, and her daughter, Clementine, with David Ford. The press called her a terrifying no-maniac, but her memoir, Civil Disobedience, which she published in 2000 as her life entered a more subdued phase, shocked readers with its honesty, rawness, and refusal to hold back. She detailed every relationship she had, from Peter Bogdanovich to Elvis Presley to one-night encounters, with all the bitterness, loss, and reckless youth. "I'm not sorry, but I was a very, very bad girl," she wrote. "I know I'm not alone, and I lived in accordance with the time period I grew up in. Nevertheless, she was unprepared for the series of losses that followed by her wild years. Her mother, the pillar of her life, died in 2012 after her father died in 2001, and her sister Terry died in 2009. Cybill was thrown into free fall by the string of losses in such a short period of time. Before I realized I was as weak as everyone else, I believed I was unbeatable. Believable. Her children were her only source of support. They gave her the motivation to wake up and continue living, even in the absence of fame. She went through a different kind of turning point in 2014, one that was surrounded by gentle joy. She had a granddaughter. Eliza Ladens, the creator of the fashion label Sloan and Tate, married her daughter Ariel. Cybill wasn't merely there for the wedding, which was full of freedom and joy. She made a toast with a quip that made everyone in the room chuckle. She gave her daughter-in-law a hug and said, "I've never witnessed such pure love." Once viewed as a symbol of disobedience, Cybill Shepherd went on to become a mother and grandmother, living the freedom she had always struggled for. The ability to smile at her daughter's wedding, to fall, to lose, and to rise again. Despite being renowned for her perfect complexion, blonde hair, blue eyes, and timeless beauty, Cybill Shepherd was not immune to the harsh hardships of aging and disease. She received a diagnosis of dermatofibrosarcoma protuberans, an uncommon and severe type of skin cancer, in 2001. On her back, the tumor was discovered. As she entered her third year of remission in 2004, she finally opened up about her treatment. When she told the Irish Examiner, "It changes your whole life. I won't have cancer come January if I make it past year 3. She has continued to receive screenings ever since, and all of them have been negative. That wasn't all, though. Cybill also suffered from misdiagnosed irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, symptoms for 20 years, the doctor remarked. "I was imagining it when I told him about my agony," she recalled. "They said it was all in my head." She suffered from bloating, excruciating cramps, and persistent constipation for 20 years. Her condition was so erratic that she put on many different clothes every day, uncertain of how swollen her body would get. It wasn't until she found a new doctor that the issue was properly diagnosed. Endorsed. Cybill has since been a spokesperson for the Great Women campaign, bringing attention to IBS with constipation, particularly among women, and has openly shared her story on TV and at medical events. "I once went to a party and asked a group of strangers, 'How's menopause treating you?' Everyone froze, but I didn't feel embarrassed." These are the things we need to talk about. Cybill's severe stomach crisis in 2007 was the tipping point. She fell and crawled down the stairs on her hands to call for help. "I really thought I was dying," she recalled in the ambulance. "I sensed my spirit departing from my body." She spent months recuperating from forced stomach surgery. At the age of 55, Cybill declared, "It's too late to start lying about my age." She had never lived a more honest life, no longer avoiding the spotlight or looking stunning on red carpets, but yet being recognizable as Cybill Shepherd, a lady who endured suffering, bore the scars of celebrity, and yet dared to say what no one else dared. She previously remarked, "At this age, I've learned to say yes more to joy, to new things, even to risk." She doesn't provide an inspiring or rejuvenating picture on social media. Rather, she shares pictures of her grandson along with brief observations, such as, "I was once an icon, but now I'm a survivor." It's easy to see that Cybill Shepherd is no longer someone Hollywood wants to keep, but she doesn't need anyone to keep her. She also regularly takes part in women's health campaigns, openly discussing her 2-decade misdiagnosis with IBS, her near-fatal stomach pain in 2007, and her ongoing fight with skin cancer since 2001. At 75, Cybill Shepherd no longer performs frequently or walks the red carpet. But she hasn't vanished. She has simply chosen a different way of living, quietly, just enough, and away from the industry that once supported her before attempting to drown her. She has chosen to live in a way that is true to who she is, unbound, unpretentious, and relentlessly honest. Despite her declining health, she still goes for morning walks with her assistant and is sometimes seen in local supermarkets. She lives alone in a modest home in Inno, Los Angeles, a place serene enough to read, write, and listen to jazz. She doesn't wear makeup or try to hide her advanced age. She's still here, still singing, still connecting with her audience on her own terms. Cybill no longer accepts new scripts, but she still makes appearances at special events like the 40th anniversary of Moonlighting in early 2025, not to indulge in nostalgia, but to remind people that television once gave women a voice that was real and unfiltered. Booty. Famiton. She surprised many in February 2025 when she returned to the stage for a performance at Catalina Jazz Club, singing in a show titled The Queen of the Lucky Club, a quiet declaration. Undeclaration. From the bold girl in the Last Picture Show to the leading lady who ruled prime time in Moonlighting, Cybill lived fully and always accepted the price that came with it. She was too beautiful to be ignored, too outspoken to be comfortable, and too free to be controlled. She never concealed her scandalous romances or conformed because she believed that freedom was the only true form of happiness. I don't need Hollywood to remember me. I just need to live without hiding. Would you dare to live honestly, love fearlessly, and make mistakes if it meant risking your reputation and your entire career like Cybill once did? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Cybill has discovered what really matters at this point in her life. Cybill's shepherd may not be a role model for everyone, but she is the person that those who have fallen, made mistakes, or been cast aside can look to and understand. She didn't get upset or deny it. Instead, she accepted it as a necessary part of the entertainment industry. So, even if it takes a whole career to demonstrate it, living authentically still matters.